In this video, we're gonna talk about wine temperature, why it's important, what the ideal temperatures are for different styles of wine, and some tips and tricks to achieve the ideal temperature with and without fancy equipment. Here we go.
Welcome to the V is for Vino Nerd Lab, where we take complicated wine topics and make them simple. Today, we're talking about wine temperature.
Wine temperature.
Do you ever notice that wine sometimes tastes amazing at a restaurant or a tasting room, but not quite as good in your own home? There's a lot of factors that may contribute to this. Things like using the proper glassware, or even the simple psychological effect of being somewhere fun and beautiful like a winery versus your boring old living room. But I would argue that there is one simple secret the winery is doing that has the most effect on the wine. They serve it at the proper temperature. Before we get into what the proper temperature is, let's talk about why it's important. See, most of us are guilty at serving our wine either too warm or too cold. The reality is that red and white wines should be served at a much closer temperature to each other than you may think. If a wine is served too cold, the wine will taste tart, reds will taste overly tannic, and you won't get any of the flavors. I call it the college beer effect. Beer me, bro. When you were in college, you wanted your beer as cold as possible because it was cheap and you didn't really like the taste of beer yet anyway. So you would drink it ice cold because things that are ice cold lose their flavor. If the wine is too hot, the alcohol is overemphasized and the wine will taste syrupy and heavy, not fresh. So what is the right temperature? Well, if you only have two temperatures you serve wine at, fridge and room temp, you're either over or undershooting. A refrigerator is too cold at around 37 degrees, and the red at room temperature adage referred to drafty old castles in Europe, not your well-insulated home, which is far too hot at around 70 degrees. See the chart below for your ideal temperature for each style of wine. Generally, the lighter the style of wine, the cooler it should be served. But this information doesn't really help us, now does it? Without opening the wine and measuring with a thermometer, what is a practical way to get our wine to proper temperature? A great solution is one of these little guys. This is a wine fridge with two zones for two different temperatures that you could set at the medium temperatures for whites and reds, 50 and 60 respectively. I do highly recommend them. And if you have the space, they get even larger, which are great for the long-term storage of wine, which I would set to 55 degrees or cellar temperature. But perhaps you were hoping not to have to buy any new equipment. The chart below gives the amount of time in a standard refrigerator it takes a room temperature bottle to chill. But timing this with when you want to drink the wine can be a bit of a challenge. So if you want to keep it simple, and this is my #1 advice of the video, you can get really close by following this general rule. Put red wines into the fridge 25 minutes before you want to serve them, and take white wines out of the fridge 25 minutes before you want to serve them, provided they were stored in there. The exception is sparkling wine, which can be served fridge temp because it helps preserve the bubbles. And if you need to chill the wines quickly, the freezer will get a sparkling wine cold in about an hour, provided you lay the bottle on its side, not upright, because science I don't want to get into right now. You can cut that number down even further by wrapping the wine in a wet dish towel before you put it in the freezer, which should get it chilled in about 40 minutes. Just don't forget it, or you'll end up with a ruined wine and potentially an exploded mess. Even quicker, the ice bucket. There's a reason it's used at restaurants. Lots of ice, water, and a good amount of salt, which lowers the water's freezing point and gets it cooled quicker. Less than 10 minutes for reds, 15 to 20 for whites. Really desperate, put the wine in a Ziploc bag and into ice water for 2 to 5 minutes. Or, worst case scenario, just kidding folks, save the ice for your sodas and your cocktails as to not water down the wine. I hope you enjoyed today's Nerd Lab on temperature, and as always, keep geeking out.
Hey, if you enjoy our Nerd Labs, you'll definitely like our full episodes. This one was part of our Provence, France episode, but there's a ton of great ones on our page, so go check them out. See you soon.